I'll let you take it away.
All right, so how many of you are familiar with the Cisco certification track? Awesome. How many of you are aware that there's changes to the Cisco certification track as of February 24th, 2020? Good. So for those of you that aren't too familiar, this is somewhat of how the levels are for the Cisco certification track. Right here at the bottom, we've got the CCENT, which is Cisco Certified Entry Networking Technician. This is your start for many of your paths to become a CCIE or even above if you so pursue the CCAR or Cisco Certified Architect. Anyway, above that is Cisco Certified Network Associate exam. This one's the most popular. It's one of the most sought out for certifications, even if you're going into networking or you're not. Even some system administration paths recommend that you get your CCNA, as it gives you a very good base knowledge of networking. On top of that, you've got CCNP, Cisco Certified Network Professional, and that's basically where you're starting to get a lot more into advanced topics from the CCNA. I'll make sure to kind of briefly go over the certifications and what they mean. And then on the very top, for a lot of people, is the Cisco Certified Inter-Network Expert, or CCIE. So starting off right here, we've got the CCENT. Some of the things that you cover include basic network design. You know what a router, a switch, a hub. You know what a firewall is. Understand why hubs are being phased out by switches. Well, they have been phased out for a while. Your network fundamentals, such as knowing your OSI model. How many of you guys are familiar with the OSI model? So it's a reference model that never took off, but it's very foundational for networking. It's how the ISO, which is a standards body, I believe in France, they kind of had an idea for developing a network stack, which allows you to communicate on the network. So it allows your computers to talk to the internet. But what did take off was TCP/IP, and you'll learn about the differences and the similarities between the two. You'll learn about how they both correlate with each other. And of course, you'll learn about Ethernet, how what you call a frame is structured, what basically you encapsulate and put data into, and how that's structured and how it's sent across the network. And here I've basically got the basic network design demonstrating that, if you're getting a CCENT, you're typically going to be somewhat administrating like a small business is. So describing these different symbols, you've got the cloud, which represents the internet. Anything that's described as a cloud in networking usually means that's something you're not too much aware of, but you know it's there, such as the internet. You don't know how the internet's structured by like service providers. You can't see how a service provider network internally is. So what you do is you mask that and you just put a cloud around it. Right here we've got your modem that connects you to your service provider, such as Time Warner Cable or Spectrum now, Smartcom. Any other service providers that there are down anywhere else. Right here you've got what's a router. And what a router is it's able to take packets or pieces of information and forward them out intelligently. And right here you've got a switch. A switch you use to be able to interconnect computers. And switches are much more intelligent than when you will learn in the CCENT. A lot of networks, for what they have, their core, are composed of switches. And then you've got right here is somewhat of a badly drawn access point. And an access point just gives off Wi-Fi. So you can see that the computer's not connected directly to anything. This is supposed to be a laptop, and it sends out signal. So you learn about things like this, your fundamentals. On top of that, you've got your Cisco Certified Network Associate, your CCNA. And here's where you'll start to get into things like more advanced routing. You actually figure out, more specifically, how does your information at this point get all the way to information to a destination on the internet? Very much specific. You learn about things like layer 2 switching, such as BTP, DTP, STP. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, or if you have any big questions, you can go ahead and ask me if some of these acronyms are a bit fuzzy to you.
Could you please describe VTP and DTN?
So these are protocols that switches use. So these devices, talk to each other, there's something what they call trunks, and you have these things called VLANs. So how many of you are aware with VLANs? So a good amount of you. So what a trunk port does is it carries information from multiple VLANs over one single link. And what DTP is, it's a Cisco proprietary technology that runs between these switches that automatically brings up a trunk without you having to do any configuration. So dynamic trunking protocol. And then VTP is a Cisco proprietary protocol that isn't used much in modern networks just because of how a lot of the security structure behind it. But VTP, VLAN trunking protocol, is used to advertise these VLANs from these switches. Because, for example, if a switch isn't aware of a VLAN, it would just drop the traffic. So VTP kind of goes around that and advertises. If you configure a VLAN right here, you'll advertise it to these other switches so they can be aware of the VLAN too. You've got what you call spanning tree protocol, which is the way switches work is interesting compared to the way routers work because there's something not called there's something on like the Ethernet layer that's not that only layer 3 has, known as the time to live field. So what the time to live field is, it's just it's a value that says, okay, once I reach these many hops, I'll drop the packet. And the way switches work is, if they don't know where some information such as a frame belongs or how to get somewhere, it'll broadcast it out, and all the other switches connected will receive. And since they don't know, they'll broadcast it out too, and it just creates a loop. And layer 2 doesn't have anything to stop that from happening. So you have something called SDP when you have redundant links, so multiple links, where if one of these links goes down, or if you want more efficient forwarding of traffic, load balancing across multiple links. SDP is there to block links just because of how switches work. So just to make sure that when you send information, it doesn't get looped around. You get into some basic security, like, how many of you are familiar with DHCP? So Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. What it basically does is it automatically allocates the IP address to a computer without you having to manually type in an IP address. I mean, who wants to do that all the time? And there's this feature called DHCP snooping, which if you're an attacker and you want to be able to, one host to route their information to you, that feature prevents that from happening using trusted and untrusted ports. Like I said, this is just a general overview, so if you have any more specific technical questions, feel free to ask after the presentation. You get into what are known as routing protocols. These things advertise routes, so it's kind of like a GPS for a network. And what they do is, some of them are proprietary for the most part, like EIGRP, which is a Cisco routing protocol. And then you've got the open standards base, such as OSPF, so any vendor can implement it. EIGRP for the most part is Cisco only. And then you've got things like BGP. And each of them have their own like design scenarios or why you would choose one over the other. But you get into understanding what they are and how to configure them. And then you also learn about some basic VPN stuff, like what Cisco calls dynamic multi-point VPN. And that's able to allow different offices in different locations to be able to talk to office over the internet privately without having to use like dedicated lines. So you're able to use the public internet, set up a virtual connection between different offices and be able to share internet. Basic troubleshooting is also covered in the Cisco Certified Network Associate. And then above that, we've got the Cisco Certified Network Professional, or CCNP. In terms of what Cisco has, one of their main tracks, which is routing and switching. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. They've got, in order to attain the certification, these two certifications are just one exam. So CCENT, one exam, CCNA, one exam. Once you pass it, you're both a CCENT and a CCNA. Or there's also what they call the composite path, which is you just take one exam and you get the CCNA, and you don't have to worry about taking two exams. Anyway, so for routing and switching, which is one of the more popular certification tracks, they've got 3 exams: one on routing, one on switching, and one on troubleshooting. So more specifically, what's covered is a lot more advanced routing. Routing is something that can get very complex. Uh, Not really to understand, but there's just so many features and so many things that are behind routing. Uh, so you get a lot of more information on BGP, OSPF, EIGRP, route redistribution, which is, like I mentioned, there's different routing protocols. Route redistribution is being able to take those two routing protocols and being able to form a way so that they can exchange information between one another. Advanced troubleshooting. And for this one, you get more into a network administrator type role, where you have a lot more router switches. You understand why you would run BGP in certain cases for specific policies, the Boy Gateway Protocol. And then finally, the CCIE, which is at the very top. You get into basically advanced everything. You get into a lot of complex redistribution scenarios. You get to work with VPNs, a service provider technology known as MPLS, multi-protocol label switching. And I know a lot of people that play games that are probably aware of QoS or quality of service. What you'll know is that you'll be able to configure this a lot more manual way than your router does it for more specific reasons. So to prioritize like phone traffic over someone streaming a video on YouTube or someone downloading video or downloading any content. So this is just kind of like a basic representation of, things get more advanced. So you've got like very basic devices, only a few devices connected together. And as you get to the top, you get a lot more complex. And this is to the point where I'm trying to get to, which is the CCIE. Right now I'm at the CCNP in routing and switching. So how many of you are aware that Cisco has other specializations or tracks? So yeah, Cisco right now in the CCNA level above, you can specialize in things like security, collaboration, which is for the most part phones. Um, you can specialize in industrial technologies, and there's several other tracks that I'll talk about. But you can specialize in, not just routing and switching, which is pretty cool that they have a lot more technologies that you can focus on in their portfolio. Anyway, now I'm gonna start to talk about some of my journey and a little bit about me. First of all, big thank you to everyone that's like helped me get here, my parents and my mentors and everyone here. And should be, is it projector? Anyway, that's gonna go up pretty soon. So like I said, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to interrupt me or ask me at the end of the presentation. Don't hesitate to ask anything. Anyway, my journey and some of the changes to the certification tracks. So like I mentioned before, I'm a CCNP in routing and switching. That's my highest credential. I've also got some CompTIA certs. CompTIA has this thing called stackable certification, which is a designation. If you have a certain amount of certifications from CompTIA, like probably some of you have heard of like A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, you get what they call a stackable certification. So it's just another designation that you can have. It's much simpler than saying that you have 3 certifications, just saying that you have 1. But anyway, with that being said, I am a CSIS. I used to be, over the summer I was working for SmartCom, so I know a lot of my coworkers are here, or people that have worked at SmartCom. I was in charge of doing things like servers, CentOS with DNS, working with Juniper, Junos devices, Cisco devices, and trend channel banks, extreme switches. I worked with a lot of vendors and a lot of technologies. And I was a content creator for David Bombo. In fact, I created a Network Plus practice exam course, which should come out pretty soon. I know he's busy working on a lot of other stuff, but how many of you have heard of David Bongo? So he does a lot of content for Cisco certifications. And I'll also talk about some study materials I use to get to this path. So anyway, so something that's funny is a lot of people ask me how did I get started with Cisco certifications, and I know back then when they were running a program here on CompTIA boot camps, I initially applied. I was told I was too young. I was about like what 13 or 14. So my dad knew that, and then he was all like, "Why don't we go look up Cisco certifications?" And I mean, ever since that day, in about it was about June of 2017, I've been studying for Cisco certifications. So it's been about 2 years, and since those 2 years, I've gotten a total of about 11 certifications. So also, I forgot to mention that I've been working with, and of course, breaking computers since I was 4. My first experience with the computer was probably when I broke my mom's first laptop when I was 4. But yeah, that was definitely an experience and something fun. Anyway, so this is the beginning of what I got. My first certification was the CCIEs. So I took it in the 3rd of March of 2018. I passed the first time, thankfully, with a 934 out of 832. And this took about 9 months to study. I've also got some tips on study methods, but one of the things that held me back from going forward or taking about 9 months was the fact that I didn't have any study strategies, but I'll talk about some of those things right now. Anyway, so soon after that, the next natural path was above that was the CCNA in routing and switching, which is the most popular certification. So I next got that, and I scored a 910 out of 811. And this one actually took me about 3 months, which was a big difference from 9 months because I actually found out how I study better, what materials I like to use, and from then on I took very little time and finished up my CCNA relatively quickly. So next up is I actually got admitted to the certification program that they had down here for CompTIA. So I have the ITF certification from CompTIA. My second certification that I attained was the Network Plus. I took the first A Plus exam, which was at the time, they don't have it anymore, but the 901 exam. And then at that time, I was a CCNA, so I figured I already have a lot of what's covered in Network Plus, so I thought I'd finish Network Plus pretty soon. And then quickly after, I got the A Plus, so I finished up with the second exam for the A Plus in 902. And then lastly, I got the Security Plus. So I'm actually right there. This is a picture of me and several other of my classmates. So, right, all the way in the back. Pretty hard to see. But these are the respective dates when I passed the certifications. I actually had to finish the program very early because it was overlapping with school time. But nevertheless, I studied on my own and managed to get them. So from then on out, I figured one kind of mini goals was that I should become a CCNP by the time I was 16. So I decided to start off with the first exam, which was the switch exam, which I have mentioned over there. And I passed the first time, thankfully, with an 825 out of 790. And this one took about 2.5 months. It was relatively straightforward. It didn't cover as much material as these other exams that Cisco had, but I did pretty well. But then I failed. I failed route the first time, which is I believe the second exam I listed up there. I failed the first time with a 768 out of 790. But later on, I just passed. But that brings me on to an important point is when studying for these certification exams, you want to have more than one resource. That's kind of what I learned the hard way, is that a lot of these books and training materials, they won't cover everything that's in objectives to find point where it should be. and that's kind of what shortcut me. And that's why I learned that I should go back and read some of the technical documentation that Cisco has to offer. They have extremely great resources on their technologies. But yeah, that was the thing that I barely failed, and you know, I later went back and I passed. I passed with the 843 out of 790. I felt pretty good. And something to mention is that with these exams, these aren't like academic exams like you would take in school. The first time I took route, I came in confident, I went in confident, and then I came out confident, and then I still failed. So it's not, these exams aren't scored, you could say, linearly, but the thing about it is that the good thing about these exams is that you can retake them. Sure, you might have to pay the exam cost again, but it's not like in college or in high school.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with the scoring system. How is 843 out of 790?
Oh, yeah, so I scored a 843, but 790 is the minimum scoring, minimum score. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. Anyway, so I went back and I did all that, and then I finally was able to get through route. But then this took me about 7 months. I failed again. I took the TSHU, which is one of the last exams. A lot of people online the same forms that it's extremely easy, but the problem that I had when I went in to take the exam was I felt extremely tired. I probably shouldn't have taken it, but it was already scheduled. But I just went in super tired, and I failed. I got an 824 out of 846, so 846 is minimum passing score. And then later on, I finally became a CCNP. I passed the T-shoot exam on the second attempt. June the 1st of 2019, which was actually less than 2 years total time of me studying. So I actually got that kind of mini goal accomplished. Anyway, so a new chapter. So one of my biggest career goals, I haven't had many, but ever since I started studying for Cisco certifications, was to become one of the youngest CCIEs. Um, in fact, I initially tried to get with some people that, on their exam site, they have it listed where in order to take their expert level exams, you have to be 18 years old. But I actually managed to, thanks to Drew and Samuel Clemens, got some support up to, asking one of the executives from Cisco's learning division. But initially, it got rejected. I was told something along the lines of like, they don't think there could be any experts under 18. So later on, big thanks to Sam Clements and Drew. Sam Clements is actually this figure in the picture. A very amazing guy, very smart. He's actually a board member that provides direction for these exams. And he actually went up to Chuck Robbins, the CEO of Cisco. So there's this big event called Cisco Live every year, and I can't attend because I'm under the age of 21. They have drinks and parties and stuff. But anyway, they have this thing called the Net Reception, which is if you're a CCIE for over a few years, you can go to there and you can ask or give some feedback, anything related to Cisco, such as products or anything to the CEO. And that's actually him asking him the question, and as of that day, Chuck Robbins and several other Cisco executives are promised to get that lifted, and now I can take the exams. Now, with that being said, the only thing about taking the exams is that I have to pay for the lab costs. A lab is where you go in for about 8 hours. You get flown, you have to fly or drive to Houston or some other location. They have a few locations in the United States, and you have to go to one of their headquarters. And so you go there, and it's an 8-hour exam, but the thing is, the exam is $1,600. So I decided, because of that, to create a GoFundMe to kind of help raise money for my exam costs. And if you are interested in, helping me become one of the youngest CCIEs. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to now talk about another new chapter, which is talking about what I mentioned before. Cisco has done some certification changes to their tracks. So, a few things, just kind of overview about the changes. So, for one, the CSENT on the bottom of the triangle or pyramid, they're removing that certification. Instead, they're going to have it where it's just CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE. Those are going to be their respective levels. There's not going to be any more CSENT. So, how many of you have the CSENT or know something about the CSENT? So, that's good to know. So, the thing about the CSENT is that you won't be able to retake the exam, or once you recertify with an equivalent or higher level certification. That's kind of how Cisco has their recertification policies. You won't be able to renew it. But so let me give you a scenario. So let's say you got this certification June 1st of 2022. 2019. The certification will expire on June 1st of 2022, which means that from now until when they release the changes, you'll still have the certification. But that just means that you won't be able to renew it. So that's one thing that they did. They kind of wanted to do what CompTIA somewhat does with the Network Plus exam, and kind of combine that the CCENT and CCNA kind of more into a general exam. And I'll talk about the new CCNA exam too. Anyway, like I mentioned, there's only one CCNA exam now. Or actually, I haven't mentioned. What I meant to say was, I asked you guys earlier about if you were familiar with any specialties that Cisco has. So you can start to specialize in different tracks aside from routing and switching at the associate level. But they're removing all of those, and of course, if you still have them, they're still valid from 3 years from last time you took them. But you won't be able to specialize at the associate level. The only levels where you'll be able to specialize in, such as security, service provider, data center, is at the professional level or above, or the expert level. So I'll get more into that. Routing and switching kind of gets renamed into what's known as the enterprise track. So you can see that right here, this certification is very much similar to routing and switching, and of course same with the expert level version of it. And they've also released some DevNet tracks, which I'll explain what DevNet is, but it's kind of a combination between developer teams, so people that write programs, write scripts, and people who are working in infrastructure or operations, such as network engineers, system administrators. You're kind of combining the best of both worlds to have an engineer that can write scripts and speed up things with production. So anyway, something funny about Cisco's learning division is they actually reached out to me, and I knew about the changes to the Cisco certification track about 2 or 3 weeks before they were announced publicly. I actually got somewhat of a comment from me. It was kind of long, so they kind of got it composed down. But yeah, that's actually me, and it was actually cool that I found out. I found out about changes before anyone else had, just to get an opinion. And I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, some more information about the changes. So lastly, the test for any of the current exams that Cisco has to offer is the 23rd of February 2020. So it's upcoming pretty soon. That's about 157 days. And I mentioned before the CCENT, you won't be able to take the CCENT exam after the 23rd. Like I mentioned, there will only be one CCNA exam, and also exams or current certifications that are getting phased out will expire 3 days from the latest test date. And Cisco now has, I'll actually pull it up, their 200-301 exam, and they're actually releasing information about what you can use to study for these exams. So when they get released publicly, you can test on them and actually become one of the first few ones to study. And I'll also talk about how some of the current certs are migrated. So I actually found this graphic on Instagram, and it was kind of we're demonstrating how they're removing all their other tracks and just kind of having only one track. So anyway, let me get the page loaded up. And you see CCNA, I'm going to kind of go through what they have to offer. So yes, so what they have for their new exams is they already have their exam topics or their exam objectives. They already tell you that the total exam time for you to take is about 2 hours. You can feel free if you want to pull it up. You just search up 200-301 CCNA objectives on Google, and you'll get it loaded up to this page from Cisco. And they'll give you some overview about knowledge and skills related to what's actually covered in some of the exams right now, such as your fundamentals, your network access, your IP connectivity, know about the difference between IPv4 and IPv6, IP services such as network address translation, your network time protocol, which provides time to your devices, DHCP, dynamic host configuration protocol. They want you to, what school is, they want you to know a lot more about security, because security is a big topic nowadays. And then finally, they want you to get into automation and programmability. So, how many of you are familiar with automation and programmability? So it's what Cisco's trying to push out now that from some people's had mixed reactions. It's what you're taking is being able to make the network much more intelligent with automation. So you have what you call a controller, and from that you just have one single way to manage thousands of devices at once. And with that, you have to learn some new skill sets, and that's why it's getting somewhat of a mixed review. But you've also got programmability. So how many of you guys know something like Python or Java? So I mean, what they're now doing is you're able to take some of your long configurations and being able to input that into Python and use some of the features that Python or like Java or whatever other languages there are, and being able to take all that and being able to push it out to devices, which saves a lot of time in large environments. So anyway, they don't have much resources right now. They're having some new courses that are going to be coming out soon. But I know a big question from a lot of people is going to be, so if I'm studying for the CCENT right now or CCNA, what should I do? And my advice to that would be, just keep going, because regardless if you want to take the new exams, if you do want to take them, you're going to be ahead of the curve if you start studying now than if you start postponing until they release all these resources. Now, Cisco has a ton of documentation. It might not be as easy to read as a book, but you'll definitely be ahead of the curve from other people if you start studying now. And if you're already going for your CCENT, it's still going to be valid from 3 years once you pass it, but you just won't be able to renew it. And same with any specialty certifications from Cisco. So anyway, so how many, I know I've asked this somewhere, how many of you have any Cisco certifications? So there's a few of you in the crowd. So once the new exams come out, your current Cisco certifications will actually auto-migrate to the new certifications. So for example, let's say you have a CCNA in routing or switching or data center or whatever track it may be. Once the new exams come out, you'll not just be able to keep this for about 3 years from last you took it, but you also get the new designation from Cisco, such as the new CCNA. Or how many of you have like a CCNP or above? So a few of you. So what's cool is that your current exams will also auto-migrate, so you'll not just have, for example, in my case, CCNP routing and switching. I'll be a CCNP enterprise starting the 24th of February of this upcoming year. So some more information. So Cisco, if I bring up the slide again, Cisco has what they call, let me see if I could zoom in. You pass one of these exams, you pass any exam except what the CCNA has, and you'll receive what's called a specialty certification. So you could take any one of these exams, and as long as you pass it, you'll get a specific designation as the Cisco Certified Specialist in, for example, you know, implementing Cisco Enterprise Advanced Routing and Services. So you'll not just have, if you complete one of the certifications, you'll not just have that. Go ahead.
Hey, Michael, are there any prerequisites to taking any of those specialist exams?
No. So that's what I was going to mention too, is that you don't have to take the CCNA before going the level above. So that's kind of the current thing right now, where in order to become a CCNP, I had to first either become a CCNP and a CCNA, or just a CCNA, just to work my way up. So no, you can take these right once they roll out. You don't have to take prerequisite exams, so you can go straight for them. So anyway, you get a specialist certification for every exam except CCNA. And for those of you that are in here that have CCIEs, Cisco introduced something new with other tracks. So if you have one of these expert level exams, or actually certifications, you can use credits instead of having to pay, hundreds of dollars either for the lab exam or written exam. You can just get credits from what Cisco has sort of partners with. So at their associate level, to get recertified, instead of having to retake the exam, you can just get the CCNA, you just get 30 credits to recertify your CCNA. To recertify any specialty exam, 40 credits. Any CCNP that you have, 80, and CCIE 120. Now, with this being said, these are kind of some of the ways that Cisco has it right now, where you can, get credits. But there's going to be more information on it. But you don't have to, if you're, for example, CCNA and you renew every 3 years, you don't have to keep doing that. You can just get credits, and that saves a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of stress, which I think is a pretty good move that they did. Anyway, so like I was telling George, CCNPs now don't have any prerequisites. So like I was talking, you had to make your way up, you had to become a CCNA before a CCNP. But now you can just skip all of the associates and just go straight to become a network professional in either enterprise, which replaces routing and switching, or any other track. So let's say you do have a CCNP. You want to see how that migrates to the new certification. So Cisco actually has a very handy tool for that. It's the CCNP migration tool, and I'll put it up right now. So let's say you're like me and you have CCNP routing and switching certification, and you're going to want to see after the 24th and later how that's going to migrate to Cisco's new exams. So I'll just click on the link right here. And like I mentioned, there's 3 exams. So let's say I pass only route and switch. So based on if you pass any one of these, you'll get, you can become a CCNP if you just add on one of these other concentrations. I'll get to that in a bit. So let's just say you pass route and switch. You haven't gotten your full CCNP, you've only just done a few of the exams. What you'll actually receive is Cisco Certified Specialist in Enterprise Core. And additionally, if you want to actually receive the full CCNP Enterprise, you'll either have to take one of these concentrations, and that's kind of what the Cisco calls them. They're much more like electives. They have different, you could say, they have different specialties. So if you want to specialize in anything network automation, or if you want to become a professional level in any of their SD-WAN topics, you can go ahead and do that. So let's say I pass all 3 of these exams, and this is what you'll get after February 24th. You'll not just get the specialist for Enterprise Core, but you also get the CCNP specialist in Enterprise Advanced Infrastructure Implementation, and of course you'll also receive the new CCNP Enterprise exam. So if you're going for any CCNP or any certification, the best thing to do is just keep on studying right now. And if you've got these done, you'll also get some more designations added too. So if you've got any other tracks, like for example, in collaboration, or if you want to become a CCNP in wireless or any other of these, there's links to these. In fact, after the presentation, I'll actually upload my PowerPoint online. So if you want to click on any of the links to find out more information, hey, y'all can go ahead and do that. So something new about what I'll talk about the expert level exams is that you're what they call the CCNP core exams. So like I'll bring this graphic back up. These are your core exams. So in order to become a CCNP, like I mentioned, you've got to pass one of these, and then take one of these concentration exams. So it's only 2 exams for any of the tracks that you're interested in. So before Cisco, in order to become a CCIE, they had you take a written exam, which is an exam where you would go into a testing center, and usually they're about like 2 hours long, and they test you. They're kind of a way to make sure that you have enough knowledge there before you attempt the actual lab exam in one of their headquarters. But they actually, instead of doing that, now all you have to do to become a CCIE is just take one of their core exams. So, for example, the core in Enterprise, and then you could just already start going straight to your CCIE. You don't have to become a full CCNP to do this. And I'll also talk about, for those of you that have CCNP in routing and switching, how it's kind of changed and modified into what they call now the Enterprise exam. So they talk about how it will go live going forward. So anyway, so something about the CCNP Enterprise exam is I'll just click on one of the core certifications, or the only core exam there is, and I'll just take a look at the exam topics. So as you'll see, most of what they have for routing and switching, it's all just routing and switching plainly. You don't have to have any knowledge on wireless. You have to have some knowledge on security, especially things like virtual private networks. But what they want new CCNP to have is a much more broad knowledge on virtualization. So how many of you do things with virtualization on a day-to-day basis? So just a few of you. They want you to understand that. They want you to understand what they call hypervisors or different types of hypervisors. And they want you to get involved in a lot more different infrastructure, assurance, security, and a common thing among all these new tracks is automation. So being able to make the network much more intelligent and actually be able to save time with configuration with the networks that you build or have currently running. And actually, I'll just go through the exam topics. So like I said, Cisco already has these published, so if you want to go ahead and study for the exams now, and once the 24th comes around, you can go ahead and take them. They want you to, I know for some of you this is a bit overwhelming, but they want you to become a lot more well-rounded of an engineer when you become something such as a CCNP in Enterprise. They want you to know a lot more broadly on how wireless voice, how a lot of these other technologies work, rather than just having you focus on one specific technology such as routing and switching. So anyway, so this is the same graphic again, and now I'll talk about some of the expert level changes. There hasn't been too many changes. But for those of you in the crowd that do have CCIEs, uh, now once you renew your CCIEs, they last 3 years instead of 2 years. So whether you do it through credits or retaking some of the exams, these exams, instead of having to go every 2 years and study, uh, make sure you pass in order to keep that designation. Now they last 3 years, which is a lot of stress relief for some of you that I know. But anyway, let's take a dive into what they have for their expert certifications. So anyway, this is just an overview. And this is very similar to the CCNP tracks. They have their new CCIE certifications. Routing and switching has been renamed to enterprise infrastructure. If you want to specialize in wireless at an expert level, it's been renamed to enterprise wireless, data center, security, service provider. They all have the same names. But let's click on what's probably going to be the most popular one, which is enterprise infrastructure. And just go over a bit of overview of what it is. So what you'll see for these exams is that you only have to take one of the core exams from the CCNP, and you could just go and take the lab exam. So you don't have to take the 2 exams from the CCNP, do that, and then go for the CCIE. So let's say I want to learn about the new lab exam, which they call enterprise infrastructure. So I would click on this link. And of course you can download the objectives in the PDF format. But what they've introduced, a lot of what the core is very similar to what they have right now with routing and switching. But like I mentioned, they want you to know a lot more on infrastructure automation and programmability, which is a big change that you'll have to learn certain things like scripting languages such as Python, and you'll also have to learn about things like what software-defined networking is. So that's really most of the changes that Cisco is trying to push out, is they want for one, engineers to better be well-rounded and to know a lot more about making the network smarter and saving time with configuration, automation, and programmability. So how many of you have heard of DevNet? So Cisco DevNet. So it's actually a site right now where you can, actually let me get that pulled up. So how many of you, again, want to study for Cisco certifications? Or like don't have any right now but are interested? So I know for a lot of you, acquiring lab hardware can be expensive, but Cisco actually has this cool platform called Cisco DevNet. And you can, it's not just only for developers, so don't let the name fool you. You can get to you can get access to some of their labs 100% free without having to spend on lab equipment. Only thing you need is something like a laptop and access to the internet. And they have sandboxes where not just infrastructure people or system administrators, network administrators can mess around with, but also things with people that want to learn Cisco but from a programming level. So they've got different platforms that you can learn. It's 100% free. All you need is I believe just a Cisco account, and you can get that for free too. And you can lab most of the stuff you need just online, 100% free. And with that being said, DevNet tries to, what they did with this is they're also trying to get current engineers involved about what they have as programmability and automation. And this is just what Cisco has to say. I know it's a bit long, but they basically want people that work on the operations side to be able to also have knowledge with programming, and also in certain cases, people that just do plain programming have knowledge on how your network works. So also for software development and design, and being able to interact with their specific technologies that they have. And they also have their new track for this. This wasn't in the Cisco certification track before. I know some of these were either renamed or repurposed, but this is a completely new track that Cisco has to offer, which I'll click on right here. And they've actually got something which maps out to how their traditional track is, which is associate. It maps with CCNA level specialist. So they have very similar hierarchy going for their certification paths. And if you want to, and similar, if you want to become a professional, you don't have to take any of the associate level exams. You can just go straight into that. And they don't have any expert level certifications right now, but it's a future offering that they'll have probably a few months to a year afterwards. But that's kind of what they're trying to bring to the table is, have engineers much more know about Cisco's platforms in relation to programmability, automation, and software-defined networking, and making the network smart. Anyway, so I know a lot of you are probably curious how I study for the exams. So I've got some few study techniques. So for one thing, whenever I went for these certifications, I set a plan. So when setting a plan, that means being specific about when you want to attain what you want. So for example, let's say I want to study for the current CCNA and I want to get that done for on February 20th. That's very close to when the new exams roll out. But notice how I'm being, for a lot of people, notice how I'm being specific. I'm not just saying I want to be a CCNA. I want to be a CCNA by the time of February 24th of 2020. So you want to be as specific as you can to kind of hold yourself accountable. And that's what I did for, all my certification journeys. So for Cisco and CompTIA. So I was specific about that. So as I pulled up several times, they have blueprints for the certification exams. And what you want to do is you want to be able to go through them because some of the resources that they have, they won't be able to cover everything. That's just the way the exams are. And the exams might just throw in something that's not even on the blueprint. But nevertheless, you want to go through, you want to see what the exam is testing you on, and you want to make sure you understand and master each one of those topics. Failing to can, cause you to fail the exam. So that's why it's important, and I kind of learned that through my first failure with the route exam, that I had to really go back to the blueprint and focus on my weaknesses. Anyway, you also want to create a schedule. So for example, this is somewhat specific. You want to be able to set yourself accountable. So for example, I'm going to study from 7 to 10 p.m. every day. So that's specific, and it'll kind of get you, if you're not so much into with schedules, they'll kind of get your mind a lot more ready for studying. So you want to be able to make sure you have something like that, which holds you accountable. And that especially helped me with my CCNA and CCNP journeys. I took notes using paper, and I created flashcards, which helped me a lot. I know a lot of you out there like taking notes, like with your computer and stuff, but I find it for me a lot better to use old-fashioned pen and paper, and you also remember things a lot better. So that's what I also did. And how many of you are familiar with the Pomodoro technique? So it's a study technique in which it prevents you from getting exhausted during, like, if you have very long hours of study. So what you do is you study 25 minutes, so fully focused, no distractions whatsoever, and then you break for 5 minutes. And then every 4 sessions you do this, you can take a 25-minute break. So it helps you from getting exhausted quickly while studying for anything, even if you're not studying for anything certification related. I think it's a good way to, have you from, if you're studying for something college related or anything, it'll help you a lot to keep going. So next up, I've got some resources I used. I know a lot of you are probably curious of what I used to pass these exams. So for the CCIEs and CCNA on the bottom, I used these resources. I used 2 books. or two book sources. I use the Todd Lamley Complete Study Guide. Extremely great book. Todd Lamley is able to convey networking information in like a very human, readable tone. So it's not like traditional textbooks that are like very plain and dry. You'll actually love to read a lot of his content. I used some of Cisco's official Start Guide books. Uh, they're very much specific, or not specific, but they can get very granular. And I mean, they're very good books. They'll really help you pass the exam. But the thing about them is they're a bit dry. So I would recommend you kind of go and go through one of these books. And another thing to mention is you always want to have two or more resources when studying for these exams. Just to get a viewpoint from one author or another, and also just to be able to better prepare you for the actual exam, because one author might not cover some specific technology while another will go and delve deep into a specific technology. So I used some video services. So I used IT Pro TV. The video series that IT Pro TV had at the time mapped really well to the study guide. So what I would do is I would watch a video on a concept, then I would read a book, and then I would lab. So actually implement what I learned, and that helped me a lot studying for these exams. I also use CBT Nuggets, extremely great content provider. Their videos are very fun to watch, and they give you a lot of information while you're just having fun learning. A more budget option for those that are studying for CCIE, CCNA, CCNP, and still a really great option that I went through some of his content is Chris Bryant. So you can get a full CCNA course that covers almost everything you have to know on this platform called Udemy for about like $12 or $13, which is really affordable. And he does a really good job of explaining concepts, and even sometimes he leads to other resources where you can learn more about things. So for sure, if you want to, if you can't really afford some of these resources, Chris Bryant, he does really well for about like $12 to like $20 on Udemy. I use a resource called INE, or Internet with Expert, to go through some videos. They have some of the best content ever in terms of videos for going through not just Cisco but Juniper and other vendors and technologies, and Kevin Wallace's video training. So I know I used a lot of materials, and doing that will help you better prepare for the exam. And then finally, to make sure I can implement the stuff, I used a book called 101 Labs for the CCNA by Paul Browning, a very good lab book, very good examples and kind of walkthroughs of how to configure things Cisco related. Lastly, for another lab resource is, how many of you are aware of Cisco Packet Tracer? So it's a free program that's really good if you don't have equipment that simulates how routers work, and it's 100% free. But what David Bumble did was he took that and he was able to pre-create labs and make them so you can, he would give you like instructions, and then you just run through the labs, and then he has like videos or even printed out guides that show you how to verify what you did is right, or if you have some type of troubleshooting scenario. But anyway, that's what I use for the CCENT and CCNA. For the CCNP, it was a lot more straightforward. There's a lot more resources for the CCENT and CCNA than there are for the CCNP. I use the official cert guides, really good books. These are very well written for the CCNP level. I also use the Foundation Learning Guide book, really good. Similarly, I use Kevin Wallace, CBT Nuggets, INE. For labs, I make sure to use, INE has some labs that you can use that they have included with your subscription. I use 101 Labs for the CCNP, same book by Paul Browning, only for one of the exams, so the switch exam. And then I use Boson XSIM, which actually helped me do really well on the troubleshooting exam, so T-Shoot. Because what they actually did is they somewhat got a similar interface to what you will have on the actual exam, and somewhat similar scenarios. So it'll get you really prepped up for once you take the troubleshooting exam under the CCNP level. So I know some of you are also wondering what I used for labbing, and when I studied for the first two exams, I used physical lab equipment. I had some Cisco 2821 routers, some Cisco 3560 switches. They're relatively inexpensive. They're about the routers I mentioned are about like $50 each on eBay. And for the CCENT and CCNA, you'll need about uh, two routers and about two or three switches. And then the switches were about like $45 to $50 each piece on eBay. So eBay is a really good source if you want to get physical equipment. Use physical equipment because there's a lot of good stuff out there for really good prices. I also used a packet tracer for the entry level exams, so CCENT and CCNA. Just because some of these features I wanted. The thing about physical hardware is it takes, for one, forever to boot up. You're waiting for like 3 to 5 minutes for a single router or switch to boot up. They suck up a lot of power, and they're loud, and they make a lot of heat because these are meant to be in racks where there's a ton of like cooling, stuff like that. So running a lot of these will of course make your like room get hot and stuff. But if I wanted to do something quickly that I wasn't limited to, I just put a packet tracer, and it's free, and you can use it really up to your CCNA level. CCNP is like you'll have to get into some more advanced topics or advanced commands that aren't covered just because it's a simulator. But to remedy that, I used GNS3 with. How many of you have heard of GNS3? So it's a great software for actually building virtual networks, and I'll put them in a bit. And I use what Cisco has known as their viral images. So viral virtual internet routing labs, I believe it's called. These are images that are very similar to physical hardware, but you're able to run them on something like a server or a laptop. So for one, you're able to get your virtual networks up and running way quicker and not suck up as much power. And of course, you don't have a heater right next to you. So anyway, I'll load up GNS3 right now. So it's a very great platform that I've been using to lab up things instead of having to have physical routers and switches running in front of me. So the graphical user interface is actually very simple to use. So they first want me to create a project, which it automatically opens up. And I can call it anything. Just call this code RSVP. And you can have multiple projects and multiple things. You can even import projects. But what's cool is that you can drag and drop, for example, Cisco routers right into GNS3 and have them fully boot up relatively quickly. So if I launch the console for one of these routers, it's a bit hard to see because I have this running under PuTTY right now. But this only takes about 1.5 minutes to boot up, or even less, depending on how good your hardware is, rather than having to wait for like 5 minutes just to get a single device to boot up. And if you give a few more seconds, it'll actually be fully boot up. And it's find its configuration, space configuration. And you'll definitely see the advantage of using this when going through those higher level certifications because you save a lot of time. So it's already booted up, that's how quick it is. And similarly, I can drag and drop switches. The only downside to GNS3 is you either have to have access to some older actual images that you pull off routers or switches, or any device, or you have to use Cisco viral images, which a subscription to viral costs about $200 a year. But if you factor it out, once you start climbing up the certification ladder, $200 a year sounds a lot better than having to spend like $400 on routers or switches, and not just that, but you're able to run like 20 of these. 20 times 5 is $50 is pretty expensive. So it, for one, saves a lot of time and saves a lot of money in the long run.
Yeah, I'll say something. It's definitely come a long way. I know even a couple years back, the certification still you couldn't do all of it on GNS3.
Mm-hmm.
That was like about 5 years ago when I did it. So now with GNS3 and the level that it's at, and Viral being released a couple years back, I mean, there's never been a better time to do virtual labs, and so much less expensive now than what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So, several $1,000s before. Now it's just a couple hundred.
And not just that, when you have a Viral subscription, they release images with some newer features that you can only find if you spend like $10,000 on the router or a switch. But you're only paying $200 a year for some of these images. And it's pretty cool how you can do that instead of having to require thousands of dollars worth of physical equipment like you used to have to back a few years ago. And right now I'm trying to move on to this other platform known as EvenG, which is similar to GNS3, but you're able to, it's somewhat more resource efficient, and you're able to scale large labs with like dozens of routers and switches on the server or even on something like a laptop. Anyway, and this was my presentation, and I have some contact information if you would like to. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just kind of curious for yourself, like what does this mean for you personally? If you're a high school student, you already have all of these certifications, you're working towards the highest level. What is college going to mean for you? What are you going to pursue professionally in the next few years?
So in terms of college, right now when I graduate with my high school degree, I'll be getting an associate's, and I want to follow that up with like a bachelor's or even a master's in most likely business. Since I have what a lot of college curriculum covers in terms of information technology, I want to be able to expand that into much more a management role or a business role. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so if you want to contact me, I have this where you can contact me. And any questions? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I can ask you a question. So,
Go ahead.
just kind of based off of what I've seen in the past, there's a lot of people that say that they want to go after certifications.
Mhm.
You hear it over and over. I'm going to do it, and oftentimes, I think more often than not, people never get there. So I see somebody like you who said, I'm going to do it. What do you think is the number one thing that helped you get there or kept you on that path? And then also, based on how much you spent or how much your parents have helped you spend towards the certification, how many times over do you think it's going to, I guess, pay off for you in your life? It's just two easy questions.
Yeah, so for one thing, I've always kind of loved technology, and I've always kind of, I discovered networking and I found it really cool. So I know, like you mentioned, a lot of people say they're going to study, but what I find is a big reason is they don't have a why behind it. They don't have a specific reason, or they haven't set themselves to a specific reason. So for example, me, I want to become, within a few years, hopefully, a network engineer or a network architect. That's kind of like my career goal, and that's kind of helped me go through this, instead of plan to keep going. So as to what do my parents and my family have helped me with, so a big shout out to them for helping me on a lot of, with exam costs and stuff. And my parents have helped me, pay for some of the exams, such as like the CCNA exam and some of my CCNP attempts. So I didn't mention, but the exam cost for each CCNP exam is about $300 just for a single attempt. So I've also put in a lot of my own money to help fund attempts. But yeah, for example, the CSIM and CCNA, if you take those exams separately, they're 165 apiece. And something like that can get very expensive over a while. But if you look at, if you really have a passion and you look at some of the salaries that some of these people working as network engineers or network administrators, the investment they put in definitely gets multiplied out. Some of these jobs you get paid such as something like 6 figures or more. So if you put in a few $1,000s into studying, you'll definitely get your return on investment by 10. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Just remember you said tenfold, and then remember it's going to be way more than that. Way more than that.
Any other questions?